Joining me now, Republican Senator from Florida, Marco Rubio. Will you support this measure at noon today?
Of course. I mean, I think we need to reopen the government. We can't really be dealing with, the best way to deal with these issues is to reopen the government and then work those issues out. On the immigration thing, I'm a little baffled by why we've gotten wrapped around the axle here. It's very simple. There are two things that have to happen. On the one hand, we need to secure our border. We need to build a wall. We need to enforce our immigration laws in a sustainable and permanent way. It's a promise the president made that the vast majority of Americans support. On the other hand, and the president agrees with us too, is we need to find some permanent status at a minimum for the people who are currently under DACA. That is the deal. What is complicated it is people come forward and say, well, I want citizenship, which Republicans and even the president has expressed an openness to, but only if you deal with chain migration. So those additional issues can be negotiated out, but the base here is pretty easy to understand. You codify DACA, not citizenship, but you codify the legalization, but you do the border, and you really do it in a way that's verified, not in a way that they can come back in 2 years and stop funding it. That's the core of any deal. What's complicated it is all these other things that people are trying to add in, some of which I support, like getting rid of the diversity lottery, but the core of the deal is in place, and it can't be a product of a gang.
So if you all come to agreement then at noon and there's enough votes to pass this procedural vote, then ultimately to have the government reopen and stay open and funded through February 8th, is it even possible to hash out an immigration deal by then?
Well, I just described basically what that deal would look like at its minimum, and that is it would be a deal that codifies DACA in exchange for a real wall, real border enforcement, in a way that's going to happen, basically not in a way that they can come back in a year and deny the funding, and so the wall never happens, but the immigration reform on DACA does. Now, if you want to have a debate about additional things like citizenship, then you're going to have a debate about chain migration. If you want to add other things, it'll have to be balanced. But that's the core of any deal, and at minimum what needs to happen. The president's expressed a willingness to do it, but it's important for Democrats to understand nothing is going to happen unless we can figure out a way to permanently fund the wall and the enforcement that the president wants and that the vast majority of Americans, and myself included, support. And I think if people can get realistic, we can make a lot of progress very quickly. But it cannot be a product of a gang, of 4 or 5 people meeting somewhere, putting a bill on the floor and saying, take it or leave it. You know, I was part of an effort like that in 2013. I see others are trying to do it now. It won't work. This issue is too critical to too many people to be a product of a small group and a take it or leave it proposition.
Senator, one of the president's most recent tweets on this issue, this just coming in from the president, great to see how hard Republicans are fighting for our military and safety at the border. The Dems just want illegal immigrants to pour into our nation unchecked. If stalemate continues, Republicans should go to 51% nuclear option and vote on real long-term budget. No CRs, continuing resolutions. Is that something you agree on with the president?
I don't agree with that, because I think that it's possible, and we've seen this in the past, where in short order the Democrats can be in the majority and with 51 votes pass all kinds of things that undo all the things we've just done. I mean, with 51 votes, they could come back and repeal all the tax cuts we put in place and that sort of thing. That said, a lot of people will tell you the Democrats are going to do that anyway. I hope that's not the case. But look, the 60-vote threshold is not in the Constitution. It is a rule, and it is a prerogative, and in many ways a privilege of being in the Senate. We have to be more judicious about how we use those things. Right now, the Democrats are forcing 30 hours of debate on every nominee, even nominees that are not controversial. And I imagine you can say the Republicans did some of the same things not long ago. If we continue to abuse these privileges and these rights under our rules, then people are going to continue to question whether we can be trusted with them.
And from the president's tweet to yours, Senator Rubio, you are tweeting about China and how everything that's going on here is affecting what they're doing there. You tweeted, quote, while we spend our time attacking each other, hashtag China systematically shaping the world to their benefit and our loss. You attach a link to a Washington Post article titled How China Forces American Companies to Do Its Political Bidding. What are you trying to say here?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to say that these are important debates, but all around us there are historic shifts happening in the world shape, and that China is driving all these things while we're kind of arguing with each other, sometimes about important things, but sometimes about silly things. And I would add to that, that article basically is American companies that had employees who had tweets about China that China didn't like. Not only did these companies force the employees to take down their social media, they had to apologize for it and beg China to continue to allow them to operate in the country. So today you have American companies basically bending over backwards, apologizing, censoring what their employees say here in America in order to not offend the Chinese government. That is outrageous. And that's happening over and over and over again.
Well, I know there's a lot of huddles going on in Washington right now. You are part of a lot of these negotiations. Senator, we thank you for your time this morning. We will see how this day turns out. That vote happening at noon. Senator Marco Rubio, thank you.
Thank you.